Hello, everyone. This is Jason Hewley, otherwise known as J Palmeni on the Discord. I thought I'd take a moment just to give a quick rundown of my run at Worlds for 2023 Adepticon. Thought I'd do it while it's still somewhat fresh in the mind and just give people something extra to chew on and to think about because extra content is always fun. In addition, I'm also running a comprehensive custom campaign. So I thought I'd introduce that kind of at the end, just give people kind of a taste and see if they're interested. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Just to give you some of my thoughts as to getting in, or not getting into Worlds. Getting into Worlds, I won the Massachusetts Regional in 2019. I was flying a SSD Ravager build with two Gazantes. It worked, it worked really well for the time. It was an excellent build. This was pre Onager, so obviously pre 1.5. But I've been working on that for quite some time. For those who don't know, I fly mostly larges, because that's when I first joined, back in the massing at Cellist. Uh, that's what the meta was for squads, and I kind of wanted to run counter meta. Also, I do play kind of slow, or slower than I'd like, and so not playing with a lot of squads helps me keep in time. So, with that said, coming into Worlds, at the beginning of 2020, whenever COVID was starting up, I was gearing up for Worlds. I had this double Onager list that I'm flying now, almost the exact same list, and I had it well practiced, probably just as good back then as I am now, and I felt like people weren't really ready for it, so it was gonna be my year. I was ready. So coming into Worlds this year, I was on a mission, uh, and so it was, largely successful. But yeah, I was ready. So with that said, on day one. I came in, had a pretty good day overall. Made eighth, uh, and I had a very strong strength of schedule, 6.25. But my first opponent was Joshua, whose name I apologize, I can't remember everyone's name on Discord. Um, but he was flying and I can actually pull it up right here. There we go. Uh, an Architens and Interdictor, two Gazantes, and a bunch of squads. So he was not liking this particular matchup, and I don't blame him. Uh, an Interdictor is plus an Architens is definitely killable for a table, which is what ended up happening. And so it was just not a good matchup for him. So he went second, and I think he took, or I think the objective was, I want to say it was asteroid tactics. In either case, he put the obstacles kind of in the middle, in the center, and then he created essentially a little bubble with him, the Arctins and Interdictor inside. Um, and so I moved up and just started shooting away. The I in my dice were pretty good overall. And in the beginning, I was my first target was the Arctins because that's the one that can escape. So I moved up pretty aggressively, it's like speed four, just so that I could negate its evade. And then with that, or not negate it, but make it so it can't cancel dice. Um, and then it has projection expert, so I hit it hard, but it was still it lost a lot of its shields, but it was still kicking pretty well. And it hit back, but with salvo and it, I don't think we had obstruction at the time. It was I was doing relatively okay. So this was on my left flank. So I had the two onagers on either side of the center, and then his kitten was, which is what I call the Architens, um, was kind of in the bubble of asteroids and debris. Uh, my left onager flew up, and they were nose to nose. Shot, did a lot of damage, and then it jumped to my outside or left flank, which is where the other onager, who was turned inward, was pointing at it and was able to just take it out. So that left the interdictor, and what I was able to do is the interdictor was moving up, and I hit it once with the right side onager, I believe. And then once the kitten was down, the left onager was just turned in and just started shooting away. That plus the fact that as it moved up, it eventually started landing on a debris field, uh, was just sealed the deal for it. It was a good match for me overall. Um, I got some lucky or some good maneuvering in that most of my shots on the right onager were not obstructed, which was good because he also had Ramadi and he had like double arcs from the interdictor and Gazanti, and there's going to be lots of firepower coming my way. So I just barely missed it. And then squads wise, I was able basically to lock down his squads with most of mine. My squads died, most of them, but um, or I think two of them in a Gazanti. But it ended up turning out pretty well for me. So I was feeling pretty good about that. It's a good start, and so I was feeling pretty solid and ready for the next match. And then the next one, which and this actually put me on top table with a 10. I think there were two or three tens after that first round. And so I got on top table, and you can go ahead and watch Ion Radio's stream for this one. I had some very fortunate dice, which was very helpful. Enabled me to take out the leftmost recusant because there were three out before it could even shoot, and I just rolled just the right amount of damage to kill it. So my dice were very fortunate in that regard. Um, in addition, I think it was. I think he was playing my planetary ion cannon, and so I was able to use the planetary ion cannon to get a little bit more damage in there, uh, and finish off a couple things whenever I needed to. So all that said, uh, I killed the left Rekisin pretty quick, and then his other two Requisens started flying up the middle, and we were basically just jousting with the onagers. I did lose one onager, and I was barely able to take out the his flagship. It was close. It was close. Definitely worth watching. But that gave me an 8, which put me again really high up. So I was feeling very confident I could make it to day. Well, relatively confident that I could make it to day 2 at this point. So it's looking pretty good. Pretty happy. I was definitely concerned that I was going to miss out or that I was going to run into some bad matchups, but those two matchups were particularly good for me. And then I came into Reese, who his Discord name starts with an A. Agara? I can't remember. But this matchup was going to be a little more difficult. Ended up, we played his Infested Fields because he had bid. Also, surprising amount of people who had bid on me. I figured, I'd be able to go to have choice roughly 70 or not 80%, at least 80%. That was not the case. It was about 50-50, it felt like. So that was notable. But anyways, we played his Infested Fields, and it turned out pretty well for him. He got the 7-4, so basically the our two flagships started jousting. I was able to focus fire down. Which one? I think it was Tranquility. Um, and it was a real nail biter. So he was able to put down a lot of damage on the rightmost onager, and to the point where I I knew I was going to lose it. There was going to be no way I could keep it. Um, and so it was when it was essentially on fire. I was able though to jump out of double arc, which was important because it had a fat on the side and a front arc, which is just brutal. And so I was able to jump into the middle, and so that kept me alive for I think an extra activation, or it forced the leftmost Venator, to focus and try to take down the rightmost Onager instead of focusing on the left Onager. So that worked pretty well. Um, Things that didn't go well were that the squads. So he got all the objective points, which I was unhappy about. There was, yeah, it was just I misplayed. And I didn't. I thought I had placed Sienna so that even when one of the objectives or one of the obstacles had moved, she'd be able to get it. But I didn't declare it at the beginning, so that did not work out. And then I just couldn't get my people over, my squads over fast enough to the right to get that rightmost obstacle. So, so that ended up pushing it into a 7 for him. So solid win for him. So congrats. And then my last, although that matchup was not the greatest just because of all the thermals, but it was good. It was a good game. Then my last game was against Colin Looney, or otherwise known as Outbound Flight. This match I did not want to play. Back when we didn't think that he would be going to Worlds, I knew he was a good player and I knew he flew MSU, so we practiced a couple times. Um, and then whenever I heard he was coming, I was like, "Oh, that's great for you!" And dang it, this is going to be bad. I hope we do not get matched up. And of course, we ended up getting matched up. So in the practice games, they were always super close. I think in I got a 6 and then a 7. Although my 7 should probably have been a 6 in his favor. He just had bad dice rolls at the end. But for this game, we were both kind of tired, and honestly, we neither of us wanted to rock the boat. We were like at table 4 or so, and we knew, if we just 6-5, we'll both be in. So neither one of us wanted to shoot for the stars on this one. So with that said, I believe I elected to go second. Um, because I didn't need to chase down any of his ships. Wait, no. Well, I can't remember. Normally I go first. I think I would probably have chosen to go first because I didn't want his MC-30 to jump in and nuke a flotilla and then leave. So I probably went first. So he had his two CR90s on the left side, and then the flotillas in the middle, or one of them in the middle, and then the MC-30 and the other GR-75 on the right side, kind of splitting his forces, and then the squadrons in the middle. So I threw my squads up to engage his, lock him down. I had my two onagers just fly to the left to go after the CR-90s. And then I definitely was first. Because every time his CR90 would jump, yeah, because he could first last me. So every time his CR90 would jump in and be able to shoot me if it didn't activate first, I would essentially just speed 3 or speed 4 away to get out of arc and get out of range. So it's a very cat and mouse game. I did pretty well dice roll wise. I like to think so. And then whenever his CR90s swung around from the side, one of them swung on my left flank, and the other one kind of flew sideways towards the middle. And they both kind of tried to circle around the onagers, but my onagers were able to basically just do their hard turns, and I was able to lock down one of his CR90s, the Captain Rex one. And it ended up where it was literally like trapped against the board edge, and you know, if it moved, then it would probably ram my other onager, and so it was going to be real tough for it to get out. Slight win for me, which I was definitely happy with. It's a tough list, and it's a tough list for mine. So at the end, I ended up eighth, which I was perfectly happy with. And I faced some good games, some tough opponents. You'll see my average strength of schedule was, I think, at 6-2-7 or something like that throughout the tournament. So I faced some good opponents, some good players. I enjoyed all the games. Um, and yeah, that's it for day one. So after that, basically just went to bed because I was in go mode, prep mode, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time chatting. I do kind of regret that, but I'll address that more at the end. But then we move on to day two. Day two was, you know, obviously a great day for me. It really went well. I faced my first opponent. It's Chris, otherwise known as Truthiness. And he had a Vendor, Pelta, or a cruiser, armed cruiser, and a bunch of Y-wings and axe and kickback. So this game, this list is very similar to unskilled first officer, who I faced at the end of the day, as well as on the first round for day three. The major difference between them, for me, is that this one has ECMs instead of thermals. So he flew up the side, and I was basically able to get my onagers down and just uh, l- focus fire it down. He did get to a point where he was able to like almost fly in between them, but at that point he was already so wounded that it really just didn't make much difference. Um, Squad wise, I was able. We flew. He flew my. The objective was planetary ion cannon, and squad wise, I was able to keep lock down most of his squads, and most importantly, keep them out of ruthless slash ordnance pods range. That was particularly tricky. I know I had to use Sienna a bit, as well as some obstacles to keep myself obstructed at blue range, so I wouldn't get any shots. Um, so that saved me a lot of hull. Otherwise, my squads would have died a lot earlier, and this game would have gone a lot faster, uh, or a lot worse for me. Um, he did end up killing all of my squads as well as the Gazantes, but I was able to take down the Venator, and then the Pelta had essentially been flying up the center, uh, and because I was able to take down the Venator relatively quickly, I was able to turn uh, my rightmost onager to start shooting the Pelta. And then my leftmost onager circled around and basically hunted down Mercy mission. So solid 10-1 for me. He was a great sport about it. I don't know if I would have been such a good sport about it. So hats off to him. And it was a good game overall. And then my next one, yes, next one was Real Veers. You can see this one up on stream as well. Um, he picked my most wanted, which I put on the Gladiator. I thought about doing it on the Onager, but I really wanted the extra dice against the Glad because I felt like the Glad was going to be a little more maneuverable, a little tougher to kill because of that. So, um, again, I just watch Ion Radio stream on that one, but essentially the Glad flew up the middle. His Onager was on the right side, and then his raider was on the far right side. I had my two onagers kind of in the center, and then one onager started pelting away at the glad, and then some side shots from the other onager hurt it pretty bad, and then I had some Gazantes in there as well. Um, so all that combined firepower was able to take that down. The onager, we basically uh, dueled, or my rightmost onager and his onager were just pelting away at each other and doing lots of damage. And uh, it was he did a good move, I think, where he landed on the station and I didn't, and so that added some extra damage on my side. His raider swung around and was in great position to or focus fire down my onager. So it did it was good tactics on his part. The part where things went particularly well for me were on the squad side, because yeah, it's Hondo Muller and a couple fire sprays. I basically just hunted down Hondo because he's with his double or with his race. He's just a double race. He's just a bit easier to take down. So after I hunted him down, then I basically threw Sienna and Tell in with all the fire sprays, and just they you know, firing two blues at Sienna with, and then she counters back, and then so that's two or three of them, and the other two or three have to shoot at Tell, and so it basically just locked down the squads and kept them out of the game, and that was a big win for me. Overall, it was, I think a 7 for me, which I was pretty happy about. So I'm sitting on day 2. I'm like, okay, this is I've had some tough opponents, and it's been a good day overall. And then I run into Daniel, who is I think he goes by Black Admiral. Um, this one was an interesting one, not one that I've played quite like, so it was definitely interesting. But he basically had the two CR90s in the center, facing opposite directions, and then two more CR90s, you know, like roughly 3 away from that, and facing opposite directions. So he had two CR90s going in different directions. So that was going to be a pain because I knew, and I was going second. I chose to go second, or actually, I think he had bid. So he chose um, to go first, and that was, I think, a good call. It was, that way I couldn't lock down or get two of his CR90s into threat range, because one of them would always be able to escape. And then he had all of his squads in the middle. We played my planetary ion cannon, and essentially his CR90s just flew on the backboard edge, and then they flew on the side board edges. And when I say the board edges, I mean the board edge. He has obviously practiced a lot and flies very well, so they were definitely in the corner. Um, So I sent my onagers off to the left because I thought one of those was the flagship. I'm sure he told me correctly. I must have misremembered or misheard. So I sent him speeding along. I had my flotillas and my squads flying up the center. The Unfortunately, I misplayed Sienna, and I placed her on an obstacle, but in threat range of two of his squads. I think it was two. I know it was at least two, but I think it was just two. And he was able to delete Sienna uh, on round 1, which I was definitely unhappy about. So with that, we basically just engaged in a squad war with my flotillas helping out. The I was able to get his squads down. Oh, so I then threw Tell and the Valen in on one of the 2400s, or not? Was it a 2400? No, I think it was Rogue Squadron. Uh, and I want to say I also threw the Lambda. But in any case, I got it. I got it down to like one hull, and then Wedge came in and provided escort, so it was perfect placement and uh, squad play on his part, and another misplay on my part. I was hopeful I could get it down to zero, and yeah, take something off the board so I could kind of help make up for Sienna and not have quite so much firepower coming at me, but did not work. So my onagers are flying to the left. His two CR90s on the right are flying way out to the right, trying to avoid my ion tokens, planetary ion cannon tokens. And then he's throwing down a couple projector or a proximity mines for my flotillas. I'm throwing as much flak as I can, but can't quite kill anything. And then the his CR90s make it around the onagers, although I am able to trap one of them. And by trap it, I mean it's in the far corner. I got one onager facing it, one onager facing where it's gonna go, and then it moves, and I shoot it, barely able to, or I do a bunch of damage, not quite kill it, and I ram it and maneuver so that no matter where he goes, he pretty much can't jump past me, and he's gonna land in multiple arcs. So I'm able to take down one of his. And then my flotillas, unfortunately, I kind of misplay them. I instead of fly them following the onagers, I flew them to my right, and then he just rammed them to death. Yeah, after his squads finished up mine. So solid win on his part. Tough, and it was barely a six or barely a. It was almost a seven. Like it was just I think 3 points from a seven. So it was a good game, entertaining time. I'm look forward to the next match. See what would happen there. And then my final match was against Nicholas, who is unskilled officer. It was ironic whenever I came up against the winner of the Vassal World Cup. Whenever I played against him on this day, I had bid and I debated heavily on whether or not I should go first or second. Reason being is I joked with him like, if we end up playing again tomorrow, and I go second, you'll know all my objectives and all my tricks. So I should probably go first, just so that tomorrow it'll go better for me. But just because of the way the things were looking at round three, I wasn't 100% confident that I would make it because it's only a top eight cut. So I decided to play it safe for day two and go second. We played my planetary ion cannon. He flew his Venator up the middle, and my two onagers just were on either side of it, and they just turned in a little bit and nom nommed on it. So it went down relatively quickly. In addition, I had the planetary ion cannons shooting it as well. So I added, once I added all that damage in, it worked out pretty well in my favor. In addition, I was able to keep my squads again, uh, locking down his squads, so he really didn't uh, do a whole lot on them. So or his squads were not particularly effective at bombing because I was able to take down the Venator quick enough, and my squads were able to last long enough that the Venator was dead by the time my squads were uh, essentially dead. And then his Pelta was on the left side, and because my right side onager was already facing that way, it just turned in and started laying in on the Pelta. So it did quite a bit of damage there. I think it was able to take out yeah, it was the Pelta. I chose to chase after the Pelta as opposed to uh, the Consular because the Pelta was closer and couldn't run away at speed 2. And I killed. Think that was pretty much it. So at the end of the day, I ended up number one, which I was quite pleased about. And it was, uh, yeah, I had it. Yeah, it was great. Ironically, on day one, I finished number eight, which is what you need for day two, and then on day two, I finished number one, which is what you need for day three. So I found that to be particularly amusing. Um, and overall, went well. I will say I had it. It was some good games, some tough opponents. They played very well. Just and I did get some favorable matchups, so that was helpful. Even in my one bad matchup today, and the Nicholas matchup is also not the greatest. Uh, but the one bad matchup, I was able to keep it down to a five, so that helped a lot. But yep, overall, was very happy. Oh, I will say it was well, yeah. So at the end of day two, I was feeling pretty tired, and I decided to I just need to grab some food and try to get some sleep. I averaged about 4 hours of sleep a night. I don't know. Over this term, it was pretty crazy because I would go to bed, at like 11, maybe midnight, because I'd be thinking for like a couple hours, and then I'd wake up at 4 and just roll over, try, but just it wouldn't work. Anyways, um, so yeah, that night just pretty much went to bed. I felt kind of bummed because a bunch of the people were out, and I actually saw some of them at Olive Garden. And I was like, yeah, I can't. I need to go sleep. But I really would have liked to have stayed to chat. So I think assuming I go to Worlds this upcoming year, um, I may just take a more relaxed attitude and stay in chat more and hang out and just do more of the community interaction. Um, and then we're on to day three. Day three, I ended up in third, which was good. I told myself if I made it into top eight, I would be satisfied. Um, although once I was here, I was eager. I was ready. Uh, I was a little worried in that three of my opponents from day two were here in day one. So that was a bit concerning for me because they knew my tricks, and so it was definitely concerning. But not much I could do about it. Ironically, my first game was against unskilled first officer Nicholas again, and I joked with him about it was he was you know how it normally goes, where you play someone and win the first time, and the second time they've learned, and so they win. And that is what ended up happening here. This one it was on stream, so I would definitely go back and watch. It was a good game. He deployed his Venator to the right this time, which was fine by me because I could turn in on it. I was also eager to take down the Pelta so it couldn't pass shields this time. It was a bit outside of Venator range, so he didn't pass many shields. I think only at the end of the game, only once. However, for this particular game, it was quite frustrating because the Pelta lived on one hull, or actually, I should say even before that. Before that, his Venator had a front shot on. I think it was a front shot only on my rightmost onager, and he's able to land 7 damage and an accuracy on 6 dice. It was just I was frustrated. It's just like the odds of that with one reroll on a red. I forgot about that. But still, it was exactly what he needed to kill me, or kill the rightmost onager. So I was not thrilled about it, because if he didn't, even if he had rolled one less damage, I would have been fine with, because then he would have had to ram me, and I think that enabled him, because he didn't have to ram, he was able to jump out of front arc or something, or ignition arc. Um, and so that meant that my leftmost onager had to do both of its shots against the Venator in order to take it down, as opposed to I really wanted to do another shot at the Pelta, because that would have turned that game for me. But in any case, obviously he learned and did well. So hats off to him. Excellent player, and it was a good time overall. Uh, so that knocked me off the top table and brought me up against Adam, who was otherwise known as Angry Ewok. I did not know that he had faced the Interdictor and Onager list the game before this. So he was not happy at facing double Onagers. um, but with the on day three, time was felt tight. You felt like you were going from game to game, and we were on a real tight schedule. So I really didn't have time to chat a whole lot, and I play slower than I'd like. So, but in any case, or really check out to see what other people had how they have been doing. This particular game was just not a good matchup for him. And I actually have this one up on, hold on, let's check this one up on TTS. Let's see if I can pull that up. And hold on one sec for me. So, window capture. That does not want to cooperate. All right. All right. Apologies. I will fix that later. For now, I'll go back to this. So essentially, he had his two, or I had we were playing my planetary ion cannon, and he had his capital ship or the flagship all the way on my left, outside of Cataclysm. He had one of his CR90s relatively close and flying towards the middle, so that in such a way that I couldn't Cataclysm. He had both of his GR75s in the middle, facing opposite directions, flying fairly slow, if I remember right. And then the last CR90 was on my right flank, flying fairly fast, but again, I would have to turn pretty hard towards it. So, going into this game, I knew that I needed a solid win, a heavy win, after my loss from the previous game. So the flagship was the target at 140 points. If I could just kill that and not lose anything, I get an 8. So I'm like, or if I could just go equal on everything else, then I can scoop in an 8. So I was eager to go for for that flagship. So I turned both of my onagers to the left to go after it, and then flew squads up the middle, just to basically lock down his squads and prevent him from moving my tokens. We did play my planetary ion cannon. He felt like that would be a good choice for him just because he had the two VCXs and they could move those tokens around and keep them out of threat range. But that didn't quite work out. So let's check. Let's check to see if I can't fix this display. Capture method. Nope, display. No. All right. Well, showing my inexperience with this capture system, I do not record a whole lot, so it's not quite my forte. But in any case, so he was able to fly his dude. Oh, wait a sec. No. Okay. Nope. All right. All right. I thought I'd give it one more try while I was chatting. Okay. So, he flew his assault frigate on my left, and I basically turned both my onagers in on it. One of the onagers was only able to get a red range shot, but the leftmost one, was able to get black range. So that worked out pretty well for me. I got a good shot in, um, and then it he moved forward. He did because he was first. He got to first last quite often, um, but he flew pretty much straight, and then trying to fly to the side of one of my onagers, my leftmost onager. However, my onagers were able to turn in and basically just lay down a whole bunch of damage on it. The His CR90s had to fly pretty wide to avoid those planetary ion cannons, and he was not able to really move them around. Reason being is because I had Valen kind of forward, pretty far forward, able to threaten most of his squads. So he threw what's her name? Say um, the two A-wing aces, um, Tycho and whose name I can't remember for the life of me. Starts with an S. Uh, but in any case, Shara. There we go. So he threw both of them onto Valen to basically keep Valen from jumping in on the squads. And because of that, I was able to throw Sienna, who was on an obstacle, into those squads and basically just tie down the VCXs. And also kill one of the 2400s. Well, her plus Tell. We're able to take down 2400. And then I had the fire split, so a couple of the squads were shooting Sienna, and a couple of them were shooting Tell. And then he couldn't quite roll what he needed to roll, so Tell got his maximum usage in terms of discarding tokens. So my squads just kept on living. And I was able to take down a couple of his. I think both the 2400s plus the A-wing, because I was able to get my Gazantes in there for flak purposes. I think. But on the left flank, his assault frigate flew on the side, was able to get into the side or past the side of the leftmost onager, which promptly flew up and started threatening his GR75, as well as start turning in towards one of his CR90s. My rightmost onager had turned so that it could get its ignition shots off um, on the assault frigate. I hit it really hard, got it a number of times, got it down to one hull. Um, and this was probably the key moment of the game for me, anyways, or one of the key moments. Um, so the for when after I got it down to one hull, and it had no redirect and I think no brace. No, I don't think it had an evade either. So it might have still had a redirect, but it was basically on fire and just waiting for me to ram. And it was positioned on the board edge, flying sideways on my board edge, and I was contemplating having my rightmost onager ram it. However, I did not, and the reason being is because even though I knew that if I didn't ram it, I would not be able to run fast enough to get out of range, and I was gonna for sure be an arc just because of the way he was turned. Um, but I knew that if I did ram him, then I would basically be directly facing my board edge, and I would only be probably range 2, maybe 3 away. So it was going to be it was going to be and it was going to be difficult for me to turn away. In particular, since I wasn't quite facing directly, but I was facing towards where his CR90 from the right side was charging up. So at this point, he had a couple shots with a couple side shots, and had done a bit of damage on my rightmost onager. And so at this point, I think I had no shields, and a couple damage on. So I had like maybe 5 hull left, maybe something along those lines. So I was hurting pretty bad. This was also in conjunction with his CR90 that was next to the assault frigate and flew up the middle. So the assault frigate plus that was able to do quite a bit of damage. So elected to instead flee because the rightmost CR90 was flying up, charging eagerly to hunt me down. And I had, because I had a nav command, I could speed 4 as well. So effectively just stay consistently out of range. And most people were just surprised when they initially saw this. But I had a plan and essentially what had happened was Valen and was still had Shara and Tycho tied up, and then the Tell and Sienna still had all of his squads, uh, yeah, essentially all of his squads tied up, which meant the Lambda was free. And so the Lambda moved up, grabbed, I think it was the last token, because the previous two had shot and killed the CR90 that had flown into the center. But I grabbed the last token, planetary ion token, and put it in range to shoot the assault frigate. And I knew I just needed 1 damage on 4 blues. It was a bit of a gamble, but I felt it was less of a gamble than ramming the assault frigate and then having his CR90 chew up my flagship. And I needed the win. I needed a good win. So, and I've definitely rolled 4 accuracies before, but I felt it is unlikely. So I rolled it, got what I needed, took out the assault frigate, and then he had his CR90 chasing after my wounded onager, who was just basically speed 4ing away constantly, so he was never in range. So at the end, he was not thrilled. Having facing multiple onagers, I would understand why. That makes sense, and tough opponents as well. But it got an 8-3 for me, so I was back in it, which I was thrilled about because I was not happy with the way the previous game went. And then finally we get to the last game, the famous or infamous game. You could see it, most of it, on stream. So for this game, I did not have a lot of time to prep, so I did not know kind of what we were really looking at tournament point wise. I knew he was 1 ahead, but in terms of setup and just trying to get everything down because I knew we were going to be in a rush. I really didn't take the time to kind of center myself and get where I wanted to be headspace wise. But so we ended up playing his Ion Storm. I actually spent most of my time, I should have been centering myself, trying to figure out what his objectives were. I knew he had Ion Storm, but I wasn't sure about the other two. And so that I ended up picking up Ion Storm because I knew I needed a win, and I felt the other two, he'd be able just to farm enough points that he would keep my win, assuming I won, down to a minimum. And I felt I needed a decent win because the tournament points were so tight. So he put down his obstacles on the right side, and then his Gravwell projector on the right side as well. I went ahead and put down one of my onagers in the Gravwell, just because I knew with a nav command plus he didn't have Cataclysm plus Gazanti nav token, I can get up to speed 3 up to speed 2, fake speed 3. So I knew I could get up to speed essentially where I needed to go pretty quickly. And then my rightmost onager, something similar. I had him at speed 2 initially, just because I wasn't sure where he was going to go, and I didn't want to charge him too quickly. He bumped me down to one with the Titus, but I was able to, comms net, a nav token, and nav command, and get up to 3/fake speed 4. So this got me into red shot range of the onager of his onager, and it. So I was feeling pretty good about this overall. I knew it would be one of my onagers. I was probably going to lose, but I felt like I could probably get the table. So as long as I could keep his bonus points from the objective down to a minimum, as well as uh, hurting wounding me, because you lose shields every time. So as long as I could mitigate that, I felt I was in a pretty good spot. And in particular, my Cataclysm shot, I was pretty happy with, because even though it didn't do a whole lot of damage, especially because I think he repaired it, I was able to throw in all the reds and then veteran and all that in order to get an accuracy that I could then put on Vernilion. So it was pretty solid. So basically, our two onagers facing each other had the same loadout. Vet gunners, gunnery chief with an accuracy, except I had intel officer. So I was, and both in Veda range. I'm not sure if he was. I definitely was. So I was feeling pretty good. Um, so then we go into the next turn, and the way he moved the obstacles to the side to prevent Ramadi from giving me extra dice was a solid move, and something I wasn't quite. I haven't really played this objective much. I think maybe a handful of times. I can count on one hand. Um, so what what I wanted to do was I actually passed an engineering token to my onager, the rightmost one, and I spent it, even though I hadn't taken any damage, to get rid of the token. And the reason for this is because I was actually going to speed up in speed 3 or speed 4 as need be, and land myself on the right side next to the debris field, and potentially get myself out of ignition arc, though probably not. But in either case, what it would do is it would give me an escape vector. So that was my initial plan. Then when I rolled all my damage in, I was able to use my gunnery chief Vernilion to bring in my accuracy and able to do, it was 8 damage. And it intel'd his redirect, so I killed the redirect. I got a crit in, and the crit was can't attack at long range, which I was like, oh, when he flipped it over, he was not happy about it. Understandable. I've been there myself. Um, and so at that point, I looked at it. I was like, well, now I have to move into long range because that'll save me a shot. And then in addition, so that ended up later on, in a way, working against me. But I'll get to that. Mostly because it enabled him to move up and prevent me from moving and escaping. So, um, yeah, it didn't. In the end, it didn't work out, but that is how it goes. So I got a good shot off. My dice were good. It was a good crit overall. So, no complaints really. It was he just flew well. So I got my hit in, and then I moved into long range, and I purposely moved into long range of the interdictor, so that it would throw its decaps, and I wanted it to throw its decaps because I knew that it was going to be pretty tough for the rightmost onager to escape, and so I wanted the interdictor to throw decaps so that the left onager could escape, get into long range relatively quickly because I can speed 4. So and then survive if need be. So I wanted to give myself an out. So it rolled 4 damage. I spent everything and moved it to the side, uh, and yeah, that ended up working out fine. And then my leftmost onager, I moved in such a way as to give myself a asteroid obstruction, or potentially. So if his ships moved up, then I would get an asteroid obstruction. That was kind of where we sat at the end of that round. And then he moved up with his onager as well as his interdictor. And with his interdictor, he moved in such a way that it essentially was double arcing, or going to be double arcing, my rightmost onager. So that was not the best. So I went with my onager on the right, I believe, um, because I needed to do some damage, and I wanted to try to navigate to try to get away. And if because whenever he shot me, I knew it was going to be a hefty shot. So shot did a bit of damage, but I went ahead and did the splash crit just to get some shields off the interdictor. And then I moved up, and unfortunately, there just wasn't quite enough room for me to escape. So I ended up being double arced on the interdictor, and as well as having the front uh, ignition shot from the onager. So after those 3 shots, which I salvoed the interdictor twice, I'm pretty sure I was pretty much dead, which I was not happy about, but not very surprising. My leftmost onager was able to. I was well. I will say I was hopeful that I could. My leftmost onager shot his interdictor because it had just enough hull left that I didn't think I could splash it to death, which was what I wanted to do. Uh, and then I moved, and this is where I made probably my obviously my biggest mistake, in that I moved up and landed on an asteroid. So whenever I moved, I should have taken out an outside turn. However, um, I did not want both of his Gazantes as well as all of his Merrick and Jendon, because or Merrick and Jendon were going to be in range to shoot if I maneuvered in farther away from the asteroid, and they were all going to be able to shoot me in the back. And so I felt like that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 blues in the back. That's a hefty amount of damage. And I felt okay. I can take 1 crit. I can potentially lock the interdictor down so it can't get past me, and then he'll have to ram me. And I knew just with the way the angles were that whenever he moved up, I was still going to have room to escape, because I had a nav command lined up, so I'd double click to the left, 1 click to the right. I would land just so that I would still have an ignition. I probably have a double, and I'd probably be in the side arc only. So I knew where I wanted to end up. It was looking. So I did that, and I was I was pretty happy about that, or relatively, until I got a projector misaligned. When that cost me 6 damage right there because I lost all my front shields. Now sitting on this, I'm looking at this. I'm like, okay, I was 1 in 26, so I was really not happy about it because that was definitely a game-changing potential crit. However, I still had an escape vector, so I was like, okay, this is still fine. I can make this work. All I gotta do is just nav and escape, and I'm out. I'll be fine. So, and this is where I might be getting a little mixed up. At this point, he then does a double shot into the what should we call it? My onager. and I do my salvo at the and I get some heavy shots in. But the most critical part about this is that because I have no shields on the front, and he has number of blues, he gets a crit in, and this crit is comms noise, which is the only crit that I care about at this point, because he changes my command to a squad instead of a nav. And then uh, because I have the squad, I cannot escape, and therefore land on the asteroid after ramming him again, and I get a structural. So thanks to this one, so asteroid. Well, yeah, I am very tilted at this point. 'Cause I'm just like, what are the odds of the projector and then the comp net and then a structural? Oh, it was tough. So we exchanged fire, and in the end, at this point, you can watch on the Ion radio stream. But I'm essentially able to take down the interdictor, or take it down to one hull, and with myself at one hull left, which I was it was heart wrenching. The Particularly because the previous round, or not the 2 rounds prior to that, I killed Ramadi with Vader to improve my dice, and then the previous round, right before this, I had killed the intel officer to uh, again get better dice rolls. And if I had or taken a little more time to think about it, I probably would not have done that. Killed the intel officer. Reason being is I killed him to reroll 2 dice, hopefully to get I was hoping for a double, and odds of that are not good. I could have used it for a future shot. Because what ended up happening is I didn't roll a double, and then I just sacrificed one of those dice to give myself an accuracy for the brace. So I could have used that on my last shot. um, but in any case, um, rolled it, didn't quite get enough, so instead I went for the ram just to get the mutual tabling. Obviously, if I didn't, he would just shoot me, and then that would be game for a heavy win for him. If I had been able to get that last bit of damage in, I felt like I still had a decent chance because Jendin was locked down and Merrick was the only one who could go. And I had a nav token, so I could speed 4 effectively because I was still at speed 2. So I could speed 4 away, and I had a shield on the back, and I had a shield on the side, so I could just turn a little bit and make it so that Merrick would only be able to shoot a shielded side, and I still have my brace. So, but that is ifs, ands, buts, or coconuts. In the end, that is not the way it worked out. It worked out in his favor. It was a good game overall, probably the most intense game I've ever played, ever watched, much less played. Just the craziest game I've ever seen. Just those crits were ridiculously crazy. Um, I did the math because I couldn't stop thinking about it. It took me like at least a couple days to get over get over it, um, or well, more or less. But so I did the odds. I was like the chance of that particular crit combo coming up was 1 in I think it was 9,400, and that's including if I had gotten another crit where if you overlap obstacles or stuff, you take extra damage. I even brought that in instead of the structurals. So I was like, but that said, my opponent played well. He did what he was supposed to. He got double arcs when he needed to. He locked me in place when or so that I couldn't leave. So he did well. So no, that's no downside to him. Yeah, I think it was just a matchup that more favored me, or my fleet at least. And so, but he ended up with the win. So congrats to him. And that's pretty much it. After that, uh, oh yes. So in terms of, am I gonna keep flying this fleet? Uh, I'm unsure. I had a number of people who were stop by to say how unhappy they were just at Donagers or onagers in general, and my fleet in particular. I think it was no less than five. And the conversation would go, "You're a great player, you fly it really well, but I hate your fleet. It's bad for the game and ruining it." And so I actually stopped flying this fleet for about 6 months, six, nine, no, 9 months. Wow, 9 months. Um, just because people were just unhappy playing it or against it, which is understandable. And so we'll see if I keep going with it. Um, I felt like it was really well suited to me, just because I fly double larges. I have for since I started, um, and plus they can go speed 4, so I'm like, this is amazing. But it's one of those where I also just this next time around think I'd just like to relax a little bit more, and kind of chat with people a bit more and just enjoy the game a bit more, have a little less stress. So we'll see what happens next. But that is essentially it. So for those of you who are just looking for the world's recap, that is essentially it. I faced some good opponents, met some great people. It was good times. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to next year, assuming I can make it. And then we'll see what comes up next year. And then that said, I'm going to take a little bit of time here to speak next about a campaign that I'm starting up. So, apologies, I meant to have this already pulled up. Um, so I like to call this my comprehensive campaign. I'm going to be looking for players in the near future, and this is uh, kind of my baby. I ran this back in 2020 with a couple of players who are great sports, great trial run. It was excellent times. But this is a real comprehensive campaign. So it involves, and I'm just going to give quick highlights here. Involves espionage, economy, fleets at different point values, narrative play. So if you feel you have narrative or you like the narrative aspect of things, this could be one for you. I've got some balancing mechanics as well, so it's going to be good times. My plan or my hope is to basically have once I get a few players in, we'll probably do um, have a cycle roughly every 3 weeks. Um, and so I plan to give you guys updates on the campaign and how it goes and who's, the write up or show you the narratives and all that good stuff. Just, if you're interested, go ahead and let me know. Again, my name's Jay Palmetti on the Discord. But just to give a quick rundown of it, um, basically I've taken the Rebellion in the Rim map and I've divided it up into or I've used that as my base template. These first 2 pages here are mostly narrative, but it does have two interesting or key points. If we're going to end up doing just Rebels and Imperials, you have one set of objectives, and then it's the same set of objectives if it's just Republic and Separatists. However, if we end up doing a 4-way free-for-all, it gets super interesting. So I'm going to read just one of the Imperial communiques real quick just to give you some flavor for it. But it says, so, good day, Commander. Welcome to the sector. This sector is at the edge of Imperial controlled space and has recently experienced turbulent times. The local moth, Monique Marchand, has recently been removed due to incompetence, and the Emperor, in his infinite wisdom, has decided there will be a contest for who will replace her. You've been put forward as a potential candidate for your exemplary tactics by some powerful people in the capital. Please review the star chart attached along with some of the sector's history and proceed to bring peace and security to the farthest corners of the Empire. But be forewarned that a number of the planets are revolting due to the local incompetence and that you have rivals vying for your seat. If this sector ends up in open revolt, the Emperor himself will come to express his displeasure. Furthermore, if one of your rivals does more to secure the sector, you will have to serve under them. I'm sure you'll not let either of those events come to pass, and I expect regular updates on your progress. So, similar to Rebellion or Rim, it's a team game. Each faction is on a team. However, it's also a individual game in that if you are the player who does the most for your cause, you are named the ultimate victor. So it's kind of everyone's on your faction are frenemies, mostly friends, but not 100%. And then if we're doing the four-way faction fight, the additional communique. So word has reached Imperial High Command that a calamity has occurred on the planet Lothal. A major explosion has caused rifts to open up all over the sector, and we're getting strange reports of Old Republic and Separatist ships being sighted in the region. The Emperor has taken a special interest in this situation and has issued a directive that no communication is to occur with Republic-era ships until the situation is properly assessed. Your new goal is to locate and secure the rifts by any means necessary. The Rebels and Separatists and Republic all have similar communiques, but the objective is, if it's a free-for-all, which I am assuming it'll be, for Rebels, basically Rebels are trying to take advantage of the chaos and just take over the Imperial homeworlds. Doing that will gain them victory. The Imperials are trying to capture all the rifts to control control them. What in narrative reasons they don't know is that all the rifts locations are actually the Republic stronghold locations. So it's effectively the Republic homeworlds. The Republic is out to stop the separatists from who have entered the rifts into this region from gaining resources and intel. So they're after the separatist homeworlds or home bases, and then the separatists are after the rebel secret bases in order to gather important intel and send resources back through the rifts. So, basically, every player is going to have some starting resources. You have a starting fleet, 400 points. You have 4 aces with tokens, 1 upgrade per ship, not including an admiral. And something important to note, the red beam orbital onager ignition shots are unique because this campaign allows for up to 1,200 points per side. So that's a lot of things that could be shot, and so if you have the splash damage from the onager shots, multiple onagers, multiple splash, you could end up losing half the fleet before just from splash damage. So I had to make that unique. Everyone gets 200 credits per turn to buy additional ships, and then you have starting knowledge, so research. Basically, the way it works, if you don't have something researched, you can't build more of them. So you've got 100 points worth of research for squadrons or ships and whatnot. So basically there's a campaign. The way the campaign goes, there's 3 phases: planning, operations, upkeep. Planning phase, that's when you spend all your credits. You spend them to build things or to do research. Something that I find particularly useful, or you can even build infrastructure so that way you can generate more credits in the future. You can build and upgrade your shipyards. So there's a lot you can do there. Basically, for everything, I think, but the shipyards, you spend 5 credits and you roll black dice, and the number of hit or crits you get add to whatever it is you're trying to do. You could do espionage as well. So everyone but the Empire has bases, secret bases. Um, and those bases can't be targeted until a player knows where they are. And you have to spend credits to discover, or to make rolls to discover where the enemy bases are. The plus side that the Empire gets, because all of their stuff is known, their bases are known, um, they get to change the map at the very beginning to give themselves a definite advantage. So it's a bit of ace or thematic play in terms of bases and the Empire or not having secret bases. Um, and then there's a lot to it. Each of the planets has you can see technically it says 17 pages, but it's actually more like uh, 14, 13, 14, because I have some notes at the bottom that that are not going to be relevant. But and then the first 2 pages are mostly fluff. But every planet has a planet loyalty rating, and either Empire or Republic. And once a planet's loyal to your faction, that gives you extra additional credits. Whenever you deploy a fleet to a particular location, you can potentially get a bonus, which is somewhat relevant to that location. For example, Marcal gives you a permanent plus to your shipyard rating, and yeah, you get additional credits or campaign victory points and things like that. So there's quite a lot. You have upkeep. As I said, you have a shipyard, and so everyone starts with a shipyard of 120, and that's how many points worth of ships and squadrons you can produce. So let's say you research everything, and you want to build a SSD, well, if you have a shipyard that's worth 120, it's going to take you multiple turns to build that SSD. So you got to kind of balance your managing your economy with managing the espionage, with managing your fleets. Um, anyways, I'll probably do another video and give a little more in-depth uh, information on it, just so that people who are interested can um, can have a little more info. Something also worth noting is that if you say you're interested, but you don't want to, you're not sure you can commit to the time, you can essentially just mark yourself down as a contributor, but not a main player. And how that will work is you have a battle, a normal 400-point battle with another player in the campaign, and post pictures and a brief narrative, really just the pictures, and declare who wins. And if you win, you can actually move the faction loyalty of a particular planet by 1. And so, and that represents battles being fought in the greater universe or greater galaxy, and news filtering back to these worlds and swaying public opinion and whatnot. So, even if you're not sure you can play or want to commit to it, if you're still interested, we can make it work. The last thing I'll say on this is that I've got a number of homebrew squadrons, and particularly for the Republic and Separatists, that include LATs as well as gunships and a couple more, and so those will be viable. What kind of my format's going to be is I'm going to plan to give either a campaign update, and it once every 2 weeks. Sorry, I plan to give updates once every 2 weeks. One update will be a campaign update, And then the second update will be more of an in-depth look at one of the squadrons, or not one, but like for example, the Hawks and the Hawk generic and the two uniques. And then the next week will be campaign update, and then I'll do the gunships. So that way, that gives the players in the campaign plenty of time to, in case things run long or something, they can't make scheduling match up or and things like that. So that is my plan. Anyways, please feel free to give your thoughts and let me know how it turns out. And other than that, just stay tuned in. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my very long-winded uh, recording. So, best of luck to you, and hopefully, I'll see you guys in the future.